Good morning, dear learners, and welcome to the MOOC Indian Economy, Policy and Environment. This is Module 2, Planning in India, and with Unit 2 of this module, Indian Planning Experiences, myself, Dr. Bhaskar Sharma from Krishnakanta Hendik State of University, Guwahati. So the structure of the unit is like this. We will have a brief introduction, then we will be discussing the learning objectives, a brief account of economic planning in pre-independence India, then objectives of economic planning in India. Then also we're looking at the strategies of economic planning in India and some of the distinguishing features of India's planning, major achievements and failures of economic planning in India, and we will make a brief evaluation of planning commission in India in a broader social context. Then we will be summarizing a module and we'll look into the references and a further reading list. So dear learners, as I said already, this is the unit titled Indian Planning Experiences and part of the second unit of the Module 2, Planning in India. And in this unit, we delve into the India's planning experiences with economic planning post-independence, building on our earlier discussion about planning as a developing tool. We will explore how economic planning has influenced India's growth since 1950s, addressing challenges like poverty, food shortages, inflation, illiteracy, inadequate healthcare, and infrastructural deficits. So in this unit, initially we will examine the history of economic planning prior to independence, followed by analysis of the goals and strategies of economic planning in India. We will also evaluate both the success and failures of these efforts, as well as review the role of Planning Commission of India and contemporary planning practices. So if we see, significantly while the focus of planning was to enhance the economic conditions of the people, it also aimed to foster political and social development. The political goal was to reinforce democratic values, while the social aim was to promote equality and inclusion across various social groups. So this unit will serve as a foundation for subsequent discussions on decentralized planning and also related topics such as poverty, inequality, and inclusive growth, as we shall go through the MOOC course. The objectives of this unit are to briefly provide an account of economic planning in pre-independence India, discuss the broad objectives of economic planning, discuss the broad strategies of economic planning, assess major achievements and failures, and make an evaluation of Planning Commission of India, and to discuss the recent approach to planning. So starting with a brief account of economic planning in India in pre-independence India. So as you know, before 1947, India's economic planning evolved for discussions among leaders and intellectuals addressing challenges under colonial rule. This thing we have already talked in Module 1 as well. So British policies prioritized their interest, leading to the decline of traditional industries and the emergence of a cash crop economy in the late 19th and 20th century. Pioneering economic thinkers like Dadabhai Naoroji and Gopal Krishna Gokhale emphasized the need for economic reforms and self-sufficiency. The Indian National Congress, formed in 1885, began advocating for economic planning as vital for self-governance, culminating in a 1928 resolution for a national planning committee. Leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru stressed industrialization and modernization to uplift the economy. In 1944, industrialists and economists including J.R.D. Tata and G.D. Birla devised the Bombay Plan, which proposed a comprehensive development framework focusing on industrialization, infrastructure, and social welfare, making a shift towards organized economic planning and state intervention. The impact of World War II further transformed India's economy, increasing industrial production and establishing new industries that prepared the country for post-war economic planning. The pre-independence era thus fostered ideas that shaped subsequent five-year plans, emphasizing self-sufficiency, industrialization, and state involvement in India's economic strategy, reflecting the nation's aspirations on the verge of independence. Now let us look at the objectives of economic planning in India as we introduced after 1947. So economic planning in India has been essential for achieving rapid growth, social equity and development since independence in 1947. The process began with the establishment of Planning Commission in 1950, which initiated the first five-year plan in 1951 and continued until the Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog in 2015, which signified the move towards cooperative, federalism and flexibility. The key objectives of India's economic planning have evolved initially focusing on rapid industrial growth and capital formation, then later shifting towards inclusive growth that enhances living standards, particularly for marginalized communities of the country. Poverty alleviation has been a significant goal, with programs like MGNREGA aimed at rural employment and social security. Industrialization has always been emphasized, particularly in early planning, to establish a self-reliant industrial base, while gradually transitioning towards technological advancement and global integration. Agriculture remains crucial, employing many and contributing significantly to GDP, with initiatives like the Green Revolution enhancing productivity and food security. Infrastructure development has also been prioritized, focusing on transportation, energy and communication to support growth and improve quality of life. Recent plans target sustainable development through smart cities and renewable energy. Employment generation remains vital, promoting labor-intensive industries, SMEs, and skill development to create quality jobs amidst India's growing population. Furthermore, achieved balanced regional development and addressing disparities through equitable resource distribution, along with a growing focus on environmental sustainability and climate action, have become important. The shift to Niti Aayog in 2015 signifies a move towards participatory and decentralized planning, reflecting the changing priorities in India's socio-economic landscapes. Now let us look at the strategies of economic planning in India. India's economic planning has embraced several key strategies over the years. These include import substitution, industrialization. Early on, India focused on reducing foreign dependency by promoting domestic industrial production. High tariffs and import quotas were used to shield local industries, with initial 5-year plans prioritizing heavy industries like steel and chemicals. Dominance of the public sector. The government established major public enterprises in crucial sectors such as steel and energy to drive growth. This approach aimed to ensure equitable distribution of industrial benefits and curb economic power concentration in private hands, contributing significantly to infrastructure and industrial development. Green Revolution. Implemented in the 1960s and 70s, this strategy enhanced agricultural productivity through high yield seeds and improved irrigation. As a result, India achieved food sufficiency, significantly reducing rural poverty and enhancing rural income. Economic liberalization. As you see, the 1991 New Economic Policy signified a turning point in Indian economy, launching liberalization, privatization, and globalization (LPG) initiatives that opened our economy to foreign investment, reduced government regulation, and encouraged private sector growth. Infrastructure development. Continuous investment in transportation, energy, and communication infrastructure sectors has been vital for economic growth, with current focus on smart cities and renewable energy. Now, poverty alleviation. Poverty alleviation is a key focus on India's economic planning, leading to the implementation of various welfare programs. Notable initiatives include the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act (MGNREGA), which ensures employment and social security for the rural poor, and a public distribution system providing subsidized food grains. The Integrated Child Development Services (ICDS) targets the health and nutrition of mothers and children. Job creation. Creating job opportunities and improving employment quality have always been a vital strategy. Efforts are directed towards labor-intensive industries, the growth of small and medium enterprises (SMEs), and public works program, alongside promoting skill development and vocational training. Achieving regional balance and inclusive growth is another fundamental strategy of India's planning, aiming to minimize disparities across states. Special initiatives support the development of backward and tribal areas. Environmental sustainability has gained importance, balancing economic growth with ecological conservation in our plans. The government promotes renewable energy and has introduced policies addressing climate change and pollution in the recent times. Thus, overall, India's economic planning strategies have evolved, transitioning from industrialization and self-reliance to emphasizing poverty alleviation, equity, and inclusive growth, particularly focusing the shift from the Planning Commission to Niti Aayog in 2015, which fostered cooperative federalism and more participatory approaches in planning. Now let us see some of the distinguishing features of economic planning in India. So in this section, we shall examine the distinctive features of economic planning in India and its considerable influence on the country's economic growth. Centralized planning facilitated by institutions like Planning Commission and NITI Aayog is central to the Indian economy, guiding resource allocation and policy initiatives to enable long-term objectives such as industrialization and social welfare. India's mixed economy combines elements of socialism and capitalism, balancing state involvement with private sector participation. The public sector dominates key industries including steel and energy, while private enterprises are encouraged in other areas, facilitating both industrial and infrastructure development alongside social welfare. This is to mention here that the mixed economy model adopted by India during those times was unique in the sense that nowhere else such an attempt was earlier made to incorporate economic planning in a democratic setup mixing elements of both capitalism and socialism. 5-year plans from the Planning Commission have been instrumental in India's economic strategy, emphasizing agriculture, infrastructure, and later industrialization and social issues, providing a structured path for progress. Despite fostering growth, the public sector's dominance has led to inefficiencies necessitating reforms. Economic planning also prioritizes social sector development, enhancing education and healthcare to improve literacy rates and life expectancy and overall standard of living. Key initiatives like the Integrated Rural Development Program (IRDP) and MGNREGA focus on poverty reduction and employment generation, improving living standards. Infrastructure investment have bolstered connectivity and trade, essential for industrial and agricultural growth. Thus, overall, India's economic planning has been crucial in evolving from an agrarian economy to a diversified one, with its historical strategies essential for future development. Now, let us look at the major achievements and failures of economic planning in India. Economic planning in India has played a crucial role in promoting growth and development since independence in 1947, primarily through the Planning Commission and later in the NITI Aayog. And this thing we have also discussed in the earlier module 1 as well. The planning process has achieved significant economic milestones while also facing notable challenges. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSP, in its annual report of 2013-14 has provided an evaluative statement of planning in India. This statement has been summarized as follows in a tabular form. So here is the table. We see basically the plan and plan periods, then target growth rates, actual growth rates, then focus area, and some important things about the plans. So the first 5-year plan was introduced during 1951-56, had a target growth of 2.1%, and the actual growth achieved was 3.6%. The focus areas of the plan was agriculture, price, stability, then power and transport. And this plan was based on Harad-Domar model and was quite successful due to good harvest, objectives of refugee rehabilitation and food self-sufficiency was largely met. The second 5-year plan, which was introduced during 1956 to 61, the target growth rate was 4.5 and the actual growth rate was 4.3. Focus areas was rapid industrialization, especially in heavy basic industries, as we are already talking about. And certain key things about this plan was that the plan is also called as Mahalanobis plan because the draft was done by P.C. Mahalanobis. And acute foreign exchange shortage led to pruning of development targets, and it was morally successful. The third 5-year plan, which was introduced in 1961-66, had a target growth of 5.6%, but the actual target was 2.8%. The focus areas of the plan were self-reliance and prioritization of agriculture. And certain important things about this plan is that disrupted by Chinese aggression like Indo-Pak War and severe drought, considered a failure. Okay, it was basically a failure. And after this failure, 3 annual plans were introduced in 1966 to 1969. The focus areas was emphasis on agriculture and new agriculture strategies. And key thing was that described as a plan holiday because it was the actual 5-year plan was missing during this period because of the failure of the third plan. And even when the MOSP report does not mention about any achievement of target growth rates, but if you see most of the standard textbooks, you'll find it was around 3.9 to 4% growth rates was achieved during these 3 plans, annual plans. The fourth five-year plan, which was introduced during 1969 to 1974, the target growth rate was 5.7% and actual growth rate was 3.3%. The focus areas included growth with stability and self-reliance, implementation of family planning programs. It is a very important thing in this program, in this plan. And a certain important thing was that poor monsoon affected the last 3 years, and it was basically a big failure. So fifth five-year plan was introduced 1974 to 1979 with a plan target of 4.4%, and the actual achievement was more, actually 4.8%. And the key message, key area, focus area of this plan was removal of poverty, Garibi Hatao, and self-reliance. And certain important things about this plan was that high inflation and emergency measures shifted focus, and plan was terminated in 1978. After that, actually, due to changes in the political situations, 2 sixth five-year plans were introduced. The first was 1978 to 1980, which was actually aborted. So it was called a rolling plan, and its focuses were employment and poverty alleviation. The regular five-year plan was introduced in 1980 to 1985, and its target was 5.2%, and its achievement was 5.7%. The focus areas were national income increase, poverty reduction, and skill development. And major thrust on rural development was laid on this plan. And it was considered a success despite challenges in the last year. It was a success. So this 7 five-year plan was introduced during 1985 to 1990. And its target growth rate was 5%, and actual growth rate was 6%. And focus areas were food grain production, employment, and productivity. And it was successful in achieving good target above the target, and could overcome the jinx of Hindu rate of growth. With this plan, actually, the phase of Hindu rate of growth we could overcome. 8 five-year plan was introduced during the years 1992 to 1997. Target growth rate was 5.6%, achievement was 6.8%, and major areas were economic reforms and liberalization. And some of the important things to notice was the worsening BOP position which the country had faced during this plan periods, and rapid economic growth and improvement in various sectors was noticed after the economic liberalization was made in 1991. So 9th five-year plan was introduced during 1997 to 2002. The target growth rate was 6.5%, achievement was 5.4%. Focus areas of this plan was growth with social justice and equality. Okay, it was underperformance, and because basically it could not achieve the target growth rate. 10th five-year plan was launched during 2002-2007. The target growth rate was 8%, and the actual growth was 7.6%. Okay, in this plan, certain monitorable target for development indicators were introduced. There are altogether 11 development indicators, and growth rate was close to target with emphasis on governance. Okay, then the 11th five-year plan was introduced during the period 2007 to 2012. Target growth rate was 9%. Annual growth rate was 8% per annum. So focus areas was inclusive growth and poverty reduction, and global financial crisis affected growth. Overall satisfactory was performance, but the global financial crisis, as we all know, it impacted the overall Indian economy. And the 12th five-year plan, it was introduced during 2012 to 2017, and the target growth was 8%. Focus areas was faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth, and global economic slowdown and internal constraints, emphasis on reviving investment and addressing implementation issues were some of the key features of this plan. And in fact, this was the last five-year plan in India. So other than this above discussion, in terms of growth and key issues, the overall achievements and failures of planning in India are discussed in the following heads. Okay. So first one is economic growth, as we have all these things, starting from the first five-year plan, 1951 to 56. Planning in India has, through ups and downs, increased GDP growth in India. This we have already discussed in the first module as well. The second five-year plan and also the subsequent plans have focused on industrialization and infrastructure development, resulting in a steady rise in GDP and per capita income. The second five-year plan, 1956 to 1961, emphasizes heavy industries, as we are already talking about, and establishment of public sector undertakings that enhance self-reliance and production. Institutions like IITs promoted technological advancements. The Green Revolution initiated during the third five-year plan, 1961 to 1966, significantly improved agricultural productivity transforming India into a food surplus nation through the use of high-yielding seeds, better irrigation, and increased fertilizer use, thus ensuring food security. Infrastructure development. Economic planning has substantially improved infrastructure with advancements in transportation, roads, railways, ports, and energy, thermal and hydroelectric plants, and communication facilities, trade and sectoral growth. Investment in the social sector have marked significant progress in India's economic planning, resulting in enhanced literacy rates, life expectancy, and overall quality of life. The creation of numerous educational institutions, such as universities and technical colleges, has significantly improved human capital development. Similarly, the expansion of healthcare facilities and health programs has fostered better public health outcomes. Economic planning has also been pivotal in poverty alleviation and employment generation through initiatives like the MGNREGA, IRDP, which have provided livelihood opportunities to millions of rural areas, effectively reducing extreme poverty. But even we have these successes, economic planning also had some notable failures. These include growing inequity and growth in regional disparities. One significant drawback has been the growing inequity and growth in regional disparities. As some regions, particularly southern states, have outpaced northern and eastern states in economic development, leading to widening income gaps between the regions. Negligence of the agriculture sector is another important failure of the planning exercises. Though green revolution increased agriculture production and productivity significantly, yet gross negligence of the proper development of the agriculture sector is noticed. This is because while the early 5-year plans prioritized agriculture development, subsequent plans shifted focus on industrialization, resulting in stagnation in agricultural productivity and worsening of rural poverty. Consequently, while India has progressed economically, these failures highlight critical areas needing attention for equitable and sustainable growth. The industrial policy framework in India, marked by the licensing rise, exemplified significant shortcomings. Its complex licensing and regulatory system hampered private enterprise and innovation, resulting in inefficiencies and corruption that diminished competitiveness in the industrial sector. Although the liberal reforms of 1991 partially mitigated these efforts, the remains of the licensing rush continued to impact the business landscape. Lower achievements in poverty and alleviation and employment generation is another failure of India's planning. So despite various initiatives aimed at poverty alleviation and employment generation, such as we already talked, IRDP or the MGNREGA, India struggles with persistent poverty and unemployment due to corruption and bureaucratic inefficiencies that undermine their effectiveness. Moreover, infrastructure deficiencies have stifled economic growth as poor transportation, inadequate power supply, and insufficient urban facilities remain unresolved despite being focal points in 5-year plans. Additionally, economic planning has largely ignored environmental sustainability, resulting in deforestation, pollution, and the loss of biodiversity. This oversight has led to the severe ecological and health consequences. The failures of economic planning as a process, other than the sector-specific assessment, while looking at planning as a process, critics also point out certain overall failures of Indian planning. As criticized William A. Byrd points out, the planning process in India encountered significant issues due to several flawed assumptions. He points out that the strategy of self-reliance fostered an inward focus, resulting in uncompetitive cost and stagnant exports, while the import substitution industrialization approach was less effective than the export-oriented strategy for development. Pessimism about export demand and private savings hindered international competitiveness and capital mobilization. Further to note, the implementation mechanisms were often ineffective as plans became disconnected from the actual economic conditions, leading to inefficiencies and disappointing public sector performance. He has also pointed out that powerful interest groups appropriated public resources and blocked necessary policy reforms, prioritizing short-term gains over broader developmental goals. Additionally, the planning framework lacked flexibility and failed to adapt to changing circumstances or learn from both domestic and international experiences. These strategic missteps, implementation failures, vested interest, and rigidity collectively undermine India's planned development approach. Thus, from the above discussion, it can be said that while there has been successes in India's economic planning, significant failures persist, necessitating a comprehensive approach focused on sustainable and equitable development. Now let us evaluate India's economic planning in a broader social context. Planning in India was introduced not only to enhance the economic conditions of its populace but also to serve as a wider purpose, and we have already talked this during the introduction phase. Thus, essentially, evaluating the role of planning in general and the Planning Commission in particular goes beyond its economic policy objectives, as the entire process of planning significantly impacted both the political structure and the social dynamics of the country. The interplay between economic policies, political democracy, and social conservatism created a unique triangular relationship. On such ground, it is crucial to assess the Planning Commission within the political and social context of its time, considering that it wasn't a constitutional or autonomous entity. The Commission faced criticisms for aligning with the ruling political party, leading to concerns about its impartiality and inclination to represent national interests. Political entities exploited the Commission's initiative for electoral success, prioritizing large development projects and economic growth while often sidelining pressing social issues and local needs. The National Front government attempts in 1989 to decentralize the Commission's advisory role was notable but ultimately unsuccessful. Another significant flaw of the Planning Commission was its lack of accountability to the electorate, which allowed for political expediency to overshadow equitable development. Resources were often funneled towards politically favored and economically powerful states, leaving less developed regions neglected and contributing to regional disparities. Furthermore, the overrepresentation of bureaucrats and technocrats on the Planning Commission limited its understanding of regional complexities and the needs of underserved communities. Additionally, the economic planning framework contributed to a stable yet distinctive democratic environment. The post-independence era was characterized by single-party dominance, which, while nurturing a dynamic political democracy, also fostered a reliance on government jobs due to a sluggish private sector. This situation enabled political parties to mobilize caste, regional, and religious affiliations, which became critical in electoral strategies. Overall, the Planning Commission's legacy encompasses both its economic objectives and its profound influence on India's political and social fabric. In summary, while the Planning Commission was initially positioned as a key player in India's development strategy, its effectiveness has been undermined by political dynamics, bureaucratic challenges, and a failure to adapt to evolving economic realities. Thus, there emerged a need for evaluation of its role and functions to better align with the goals of sustainable and inclusive development. Thus, in response to these criticisms, the Planning Commission was dissolved in 2040, giving rise to the Niti Aayog, aimed at promoting cooperative federalism and encouraging state participation in development planning. Niti Aayog seeks to foster inclusivity and collaboration between central and state governments. However, its success in decentralization economic power and ensuring equitable development is yet to be determined. In conclusion, it can be said that while the Planning Commission contributed significantly to India's economic development, its focus on political interest led to inefficiencies and regional inequalities. The establishment of Niti Aayog signifies an effort to rectify these concerns, but the challenges fostering equitable and inclusive development in a politically charged atmosphere remains vital for India's future. Now let us summarize the module. Economic planning objectives has evolved, which reflects the country's shifting priorities over time. Initial plans centered on rapid industrialization and self-reliance, but more recent focuses include poverty alleviation, social equity, and inclusive growth. The transition from the Planning Commission to the Niti Aayog in 2015 marked a pivotal shift towards cooperative federalism decentralization, and a participatory planning process. Overall, India's economic planning strategies have evolved, transitioning from industrialization and self-reliance to emphasizing poverty alleviation, equity, and inclusive growth, particularly following the shift from the Planning Commission to the Niti Aayog in 2015. India's economic planning features marked by centralized planning, a mixed economy, 5-year plans, public sector dominance, social sector focus, poverty alleviation, and infrastructure development have been vital in transforming the economy from agrarian to a diversified powerhouse. As India progresses, the insights and strategies from its planning history will be essential for sustaining its development trajectory. While the Planning Commission contributed significantly to India's economic development, its focus on political interests led to inefficiencies and regional inequities, and the establishment of Niti Aayog signifies an effort to rectify these concerns, but the challenge of fostering equitable and inclusive government development in a politically charged atmosphere remains vital for India's future. And these are some of the definitions and reading lists of the unit. You can go through. And with this, we come to the end of this unit. In the next unit of the module, we shall discuss decentralized planning. Thank you.